The trade deadline for baseball is 1 month away. What about in fantasy leagues? Is now a good time to make some moves? Of course it is. I'm going to look today exclusively at some starting pitchers who are good buy lows and sell highs. All right, let's start with a guy that I know I keep mentioning. I talked about him as a waiver wire pickup a few weeks ago. Well, if you didn't pick him up and someone else did, now's a good chance to try to buy, I guess if you can consider it low, if he continues this streak, is Reed Detmers, the Angels. If you haven't kept up with him or the Halos, you might not know that he's been absolutely on fire as of late. It seems like this kind of came out of nowhere. After his start on June 1st, he owned an ERA of 5.15 and a whip of 1.54. It's pretty ugly. But over his last 4 starts, he's allowed a total of 3 earned runs, and he struck out at least 8 batters in each of those. That brings his season total to a 3.77 ERA and a 1.28 whip. He's just one of those pitchers. He's either on or he's not. Well, right now he's definitely on. And like I say, I think it's pretty obvious what he's doing. If you look at the numbers, the guy who has Detmers obviously knows he's been doing well, but a lot of people really aren't paying attention to him, or they might think this is a good chance to sell him high because they don't believe in him. So if the guy in your league who has Detmers is willing to give him up for nothing more than like a late rotation arm, then I go for it. All right, here's a blast from the past. Kenta Maeda, who's with the Twins still. You know, last year was a lost year for him, and this year getting back took a little while. If you look at the season stats, it just looks like he's toast at this point, right? 6.23 ERA, 1.46 whip, and he's 1 in 5 in his 6 starts. Why would you have any interest in him? Well, in this case, the numbers are a little misleading because, again, it's a small sample size. Definitely, these numbers have been skewed by one bad start because it was really bad. When he faced the Yankees, he gave up 10 runs in just 3 innings. Every other start, he's actually been pretty solid. Right after that disastrous start against the Yanks, he went on the IL, and since he's come back, 2 starts, went 5 innings each time, allowing 0 and 2 runs. So looks like he's pretty much back. Now, when I say back, I will say we're not getting maybe the Maeda of old, but he's striking out a batter per inning, and even though the velocity is definitely not there, he's only averaging 90 on his fastball these days. It doesn't matter. We know this is a crafty old pitcher who's going to rely on his off speed and breaking stuff, and that's what he's doing. He's throwing both the slider and the changeup more than the fastball, so he's going to know how to work around hitters. You're not getting the highest ceiling here, of course, but at this point, you could probably get him for next to nothing, dirt cheap, so this is definitely a case of buying low. And then I know this pick may not resonate with a lot of you, and you'll say, yeah, it's the Marlins fan in you, but I mean, come on. Can't we agree that Sandy Alcantara, if you're going to take a chance on him, now's the time? A lot of players after the All-Star break just act different. You know, they just clear their head. Things come together, and he's kind of getting better. Trust me, he is getting better lately. His rolling xWOBA over the last 50 plate appearances is down 159. His ratios are not good. I know he's got hit hard several times this year, but he should be doing a little better. Expected stats show that he should have a 4.16 expected ERA and a 4.39 Sierra. You know, on the surface, a lot is the same, which is why it's so puzzling why he's doing so badly this year compared to his Cy Young season from a year ago. He's got a 27.2 CSW, that's called strikes and whiffs, and that's almost identical to last year. The main thing that I've noticed that's changed from last year is his change up. Last year was his best pitch. He only allowed a 145 batting average against the changeup. Well, this year, it's gone from being his best pitch to his worst. For some reason, batters are hitting 295 against it. He hasn't really changed his pitch mix much. I mean, some slight adjustments, but not really. And it's not as if the velocity has changed. So it's a little puzzling. It's just a matter of locating that changeup a little better, using it in better spots. Whatever the case is, yeah, his strikeouts have gone down a little bit. But overall, this is the same pitcher. I'm not sure why he's been a little off, but I'm willing to roll the dice here. If I can get him low for a good price, I would rather do it now and then see if the second half changes things. And the Marlins, you know, they're actually winning these days. All right, those are 3 pitchers that I'm going to try to go out and buy. Now let's talk about 3 more starters who it's time to sell. First, a quick reminder that if you go to joinrival.com/endgamemlb right now and you join Rival Fantasy, which is the new way to play DFS, You can get a deposit match up to $200. Try Fantasy Bingo. Try the easy challenges. You're going to love it and you're going to get hooked. Download the app and then use code EndgameMLB when you sign up, or go to joinrival.com/EndgameMLB. All right, these aren't always the most popular picks. I know it's tough to trade away a guy who's doing really well, but that's the point of this. Sell high while you can maximize that value, that return on investment. So let's start with a great story, the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, they keep winning, that young team fueled mainly by their rookies. And one of them has been pitcher Andrew Abbott. And there's no question that he's been great every time he's hit the mound. Is that really going to continue? I'm going to throw out your typical things. The concerns is, number one, he's a rookie, right? He's got to have a bad start at some point. And number two, it's Cincinnati. I know, again, they somehow got themselves in the first place. They're playing great. Is that going to last forever? You got to think at some point, no, they might lose some games. And then with it, a lot of the players might start performing a little lower than they are at the moment. Abbott's a guy in particular worried about, because if you look at the discrepancy between actual ERA and expected ERA, his is one of the widest gaps, minus 1.91, meaning his ERA should be a full 2 runs higher. Look deeper, same thing with weighted on-base average. It's 50 points lower than his xWOBA. Cincinnati is not, and traditionally hasn't been, a great place for pitchers since they play in the Great American Ballpark. So a rookie pitcher in Cincinnati, a team riding high, he's doing as well as possible. I think this is where his maximum value is. I'm going to try to trade him out for a more traditional, stable rotation arm. Now, a couple weeks ago, I said it's time to sell Clayton Kershaw. He's been pitching great. We know his track record. It's going to break down eventually, right? At some point, he's got to hit the IL. While he's not on the IL as of right now, shoulder inflammation, it's starting to look a little sketchy. You feel like it's just a matter of time. I feel the same way with Nathan Eovaldi. He started out rough, but he's put it together now. Looked like he might be on his way to another All-Star appearance. The last time that happened was 2021, not long ago, and that's also when he pitched 182 innings that year. Right now he's up to 105, and that's really my concern. Because although it's not been that long ago that he looked like this kind of pitcher who went a full season, pitched like a dominant starter, which he's always been capable of, it could be an anomaly. Before 21, the last time he went even over 150 innings in a season was 2015. It's not even a recurring issue with one part. It's always something different. And this is a guy who just over time breaks down. So while his numbers are great across the board, can't argue with his performance, I just feel like I want to take the risk out of the equation and try to say I've gotten what I can out of him. And again, swap him out for somebody who I might feel a little more comfortable with throughout the second half of the season. And then if you really want to sell as high as possible, Blake Snell, I know you're saying it might be crazy to part with him the way he's pitched. He's basically been the best starting pitcher in the past month in all the majors. His last outing, he gave up 2 runs against Pittsburgh. That was the first time in the last 7 starts that he had given up more than 1 run in an outing. In the month of June, a 0.87 ERA, 0.86 whip. And whether he's been good or bad, I've always said this about Snell, at least you know you're getting those strikeouts. Well, again, his strikeout rate over 30%, as it consistently has been throughout his career. He's getting them in bunches now. Over 10 strikeouts in 4 straight starts. So why would you trade a guy who's been getting steadily better throughout the season and now looks like he is dominant? For me, it's simple. It's a trust issue. I mean, look at last year, similar. He was terrible early on, got better end of the year, looked like his former Cy Young status. This year, again, started out, was terrible, was killing you in his ratios, and now all of a sudden he looks like an ace. So what are we going to get throughout the second half of the season? I don't know. I will say that Blake Snell is about to hit free agency next year. The Padres, despite their impressively high payroll, have been impressively bad at winning. I mean, it's hard to imagine the Padres are going to be sellers at the deadline. But if it happens and they just decide they're going to try to save some money and rebuild this thing, Snell might be one of those guys who gets flipped. Whether that's good or bad for him, I mean, it's hard to say, but he's pitching some cozy pitching environments with San Diego and Tampa Bay his career. A change of scenery, change to a different venue. Who knows? Take advantage of those trade values while you can. And also take advantage of your NA spot if you have one. Stash a prospect. These are the top prospects that I'm stashing right now, and I'll tell you who I think could be the next superstar.